So this might be the most controversial video I've ever made. They're jokes. The mistakes that were made are jokes that people make about restoring these bikes. What on earth is going on in Las Vegas, people? Today, January 27th, 2024, a Kawasaki H2 just smashed the world record sale price. I mean, blew it out of the water at a whopping $55,000 US. Was it worth it? You be the judge.
Motorcycle Collection, 1972. Kawasaki H2 750 with an inline 3 and a 5-speed. It's 21. Down to other internet bidder. Gonna be 52. That's your final call.
$50,000. My God.
So $50,000.
That equals a world record Z1 last year. Unreal.
So before we kick things off, I just want to say this is all my own personal opinion. I don't claim to be an expert, just kind of based on my observations in short time, working on triples, buying and selling, etc. To kick it off, lots of records were broken this weekend in Vegas. Obviously, it's a big weekend for the vintage motorcycle guys. A lot of people base the values of their bikes and values of collections on this weekend. Now, when it comes to smashing records like this at auctions, it usually takes something special, you know. Obviously, the make and model and year all play into it, but usually that particular bike will have something special about it, you know, some history, some special owner, a special racer. Perhaps it was a prototype, very, very early production. It could have been a new old stock bike still in the crate, never ran, never fired. Or on the flip side, it could be a perfectly restored concourse 1,000-point bike, you know, all original, this and that, and perfect paint, perfect hardware, everything done to immaculate original condition. Well, the bike that broke the record this weekend had none of those. Now, before I get into tearing this bike apart and telling you how horrible it is, I'm not gonna do that, because again, it's a great looking bike. It's a beautiful bike. The guy did a great job. He clearly knows what he's doing. He just might not have been as informed about all the little specific details with the H2 as other people in the community were. But again, it's these details that I'm talking about that determine if it's gonna be a record-breaking bike or not. And unfortunately, they just weren't all there. In fact, I think you could have gotten a far better bike, far more accurate bike for far less money had you purchased it in any other environment. And what I mean by that is, at auctions, we all know that prices often get inflated. There's the hype in the room, sellers bidding against each other. You know, the auction house often overvalues their product to, you know, get excitement and create as much profit as possible for both them and for the sellers. That's how the business works. We all know that. That's not a secret. Getting back to the bike now, again, I'm gonna be sharing some pictures with you guys so you can kind of follow along with what I'm talking about. But some of the mistakes that were made, I mean, I hate to say it, they're really comical. And by that, I mean, they're jokes. The mistakes that were made are jokes that people make about restoring these bikes. The horn was upside down. You know, the horn mounts up here on the frame. Just two 8mm bolts. It's not a big deal. Just unbolt it, flip it right side up. An issue when the horn is upside down is when the forks compress, you run the risk of smashing the horn into the fender, which you don't want to do because you're going to dent the fender. In worst case scenario, drop the bike. But it's a joke. It's a very common mistake. And whenever people post a bike online, you read the comment section, first or second comment will always be, hey, the horn is right side up, or B, the horn's upside down. It's a joke. And the next big mistake has got to be the lettering on the gas tank. And this is probably the most expensive mistake on the entire bike. If you look at the tank, the lettering is kind of angled towards the back or towards the seat. Well, it's supposed to be angled forwards, kind of going with the same swoop, following the flow, you know, of the stripe on the tank. And again, you know, you might think, oh, it's just a sticker. Well, if you know anything about bodywork, it's incredibly expensive to get painted. And these bikes in particular are painted in a special candy process. So to strip a tank down and have somebody on potentially the other side of the country try to match the exact shade as the rest of the bike, you know, that's incredibly difficult and incredibly expensive. So again, that's another thing that I don't think justifies that $55,000 price tag. And the third mistake, which takes just a few seconds to fix really, is the vent tube off the oil tank. If you look closely at these pictures, it's routed off the top of the oil tank, between the tank and the frame. Well, the problem with routing it that way, although it might seem like a neat way to route the vent tube, the problem with this is it often kinks, which creates then a vacuum in the oil tank, which stops the oil flow, which means you seize your motor. The correct orientation is off the vent tube, up over the frame rail, between the frame and the seat, and then down into the battery box area and route it wherever. Again, super easy fix. And there's a bunch of other things on the bike. I'm not gonna nitpick it apart, but you know, things like it's got the incorrect kickstart, it's got the pod filters instead of the original air box, the throttle and enricher cables kind of look like they were thrown on as an afterthought, you know, just kind of draped underneath the gas tank instead of being routed properly between the tank and the frame. And again, a lot of these are just simple mechanical swap things out sort of thing, but if I'm going to pay record price for a bike, these are little details that I would want to be correct. Now, when you add up all these little inaccuracies, again, for me personally, it tells me that the gentleman who built the bike, as talented as he was, might not be as familiar with all the little nuances for the 72 H2s, you know, what goes where, the decal placements, you know, which parts came on the bike, which ones didn't, you know, things like that. And hey, that's totally fine. We're all learning. I'm not an expert. Those are all little things that, in my opinion, take away from its value as like a concourse restoration. And similarly to the gentleman who bought the bike, he also might not have been, you know, as well versed with all the little nuances of the H2s. And that's where, you know, joining an online community, whether it's like a forum or a Facebook group, is so invaluable. The Kawasaki Triple community, as I'm sure many of you know, is so helpful. They'll literally give you the shirt off the back. They might razz you a little bit for your upside down forward, but they really mean well. So I think had the buyer, you know, posted a picture online ahead of time, he would have gotten all the little details that even the auction house might not be aware of, and that in my opinion would have greatly affected how much this bike would have sold for. So, you know, who's at fault? Is it the guy that built the bike inaccurately? Is the guy that's not aware of the stuff and unknowingly bought a bike that's inaccurate? Is it the auction house? Maybe the bike was misrepresented. Either way, you know, it is what it is. You know, I really hope everybody's happy. This isn't meant to be slanderous in any way. Again, the guy who built the bike did a beautiful job. Whoever bought it, you're getting a beautiful bike. The thing looks gorgeous. Nothing that I mentioned cannot be fixed. It's just kind of going back to the point of record-breaking bikes. I personally believe that you could have gotten a much more accurate bike of the same caliber restoration for far less money had it not been purchased in an auction setting. So again, the point of this video isn't to slander anybody. It's not to say shame on you or you shouldn't have bought. No, it's none of that. It's a beautiful bike. It really is. The point of this video is more of an education. You know, if you're going to buy a bike, if you're going to spend the money that these bikes are going for, take the time, join the communities, educate yourself as much as possible. Just for example, at Mecum, there are 372 H2s there that I saw that have backwards decals. So, you know, that's 3 bikes that slipped through the cracks of all the experts at Mecum with wrong tank decals. And that just goes to show, you know, how easily these mistakes are made or overlooked. But with all that said and done, guys, it still seems like the triple market is alive and well. I mean, the Kawasaki triples this year were selling higher than the Z1s were. So all hail the new Kawasaki King, the H2 750. I'm sure everybody who owns one of these or has one in the garage, their pockets just got a little bit heavier knowing that the values of their bikes just jumped up a little bit. So, hey, it's just good for the hobby all around, and it's bringing up a lot of conversation. So let's keep those conversations going. Let's keep educating ourselves. Let's keep these bikes alive. And as always, please ride safe.